On this episode of the show, I have with me Mark Gergess. He is VP of Data and BI at DoubleVerify. And we're going to be talking about business improvement, obviously, in discussion of data. And we're going to talk to Mark about how his team is set up, being an internal consulting focused lens within the business, and how he incorporates new tools into his team, and how does he actually look and evaluate some of those tools. And obviously GenAI will be a part of that discussion, but also we're going to be talking about data flows and mapping that to revenue and understanding the business. And what does it really mean to be data driven? Mark, thanks for taking the time.
Me, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. All right. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of DoubleVerify, but just to understand what you guys do at a high level would be great.
Yeah, we are a company in the ad tech space where we provide multiple solutions to help advertisers protect, optimize, and drive outcomes for their marketing investment. We work with from an advertiser to supply side, buy side, every kind of player in the whole digital space, and working to create a better, safer, and more reliable internet environment.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. This episode, we're going to be talking about business improvement, obviously how we use data to get there. And I guess to start, we were talking about understanding data flows within the business and how those map to revenue, and how we get a unique insight into how data is functioning and how we can actually help the business. So let's maybe start there, of that understanding of, when you're looking at data flows and you are obviously trying to put solutions in place to help business, what are you able to tell? What are you able to see from those data flows that will help you improve the business?
Yeah, so firstly, the place where I like to start is with the business. From my team's perspective, I really try to make, whether it's an engineer or an analyst, focused on the business and understanding the business problems. And that really drives the analytical problem and as well as the engineering problem. And by understanding those business problems and trying to find technical solutions for them, we're able to make sure that we're bringing in the right data to be able to solve that problem. Very much at the beginning of the development and design of a solution, I'm working with and depending on our analysts and our analytics group to really focus on understanding the data and understanding how we can use that data to drive actions. Because for me, it's not about dashboards, it's not about reporting, it's about doing something with the information. And so it has to be informative, it has to be designed in a way that will drive an action, not just give you information. And that can be designed in multiple ways, and it's really important to have that mindset. Otherwise, you have a lot of good information, but you don't have the information needed for you to go do something. And sometimes that may exist outside of your business. And so, again, once you really understand the problem and start thinking about how you could solve it, you may not have all the answers in your data. You may need external data to be able to really enhance the data set and use it to drive those business actions. And I think that's where the real value of data and using data to drive these actions are. It's all about the action and driving these actions.
Absolutely. And the term being data driven is, I guess, thrown about in almost every discussion. You speak to a data leader. And I think it's the digital transformation conversation for all CEOs. And I guess maybe my question there, and I am now curious about even asking leaders about this concept of digital transformation being data driven. Is there a need to state that anymore? Like, have we hit a point where if you're not data driven, you're irrelevant, or is it still important for the business to understand? And obviously, data has gotten just tons more complicated and complex with all the the different technologies that come in. But I guess the question there is, we do say being data driven. It's part of our culture of speaking within data. Is it necessary, or is it something we're just used to, or does the business need to hear that?
No, I think for some reason it's still, when you talk about data driven, it means so many different things to so many different people. And even though, these data and analytics orgs have started to be, at every company, and we're talking about it and doing a podcast about it, and it's been around for a while, there's still variation in what data driven means. So I think it is extremely important to continue to talk to people about what that means, because for me, what data driven means is you're using data to drive an action. Other people may think about being data driven is you build me a dashboard and that's the end of it. But what will happen if that's your view of data driven, what will happen is you're going to encounter a lot of problems along the way, whether it will be skill set. If you have a marketer or a salesperson trying to do analytical work, that's not their core skill set. A salesperson is there to sell. Trying to analyze to be able to drive strategy and action using data is not at their core. And so if that's what you're trying to push, that's not what you get. And so you continue to look to change and challenge the data and analytics org to kind of get to what data driven is. And that's creating the data environment that you can use to drive strategy and business decisions, but also use that to be able to provide the data to your business partners so they can action on the data, not analyze it. And I'm really bullish on making sure the information I provide our business partners is information they action on, not analyze. Definitely senior leaders, people that should understand the business, need to have that skill set and understand the business at a deeper level. But salespeople need to sell. Marketers need to know where their channels are most effective and how to drive the best return on ad spend. And so that's the difference for me when we're talking about being data driven. And we still need to talk about it, because that is really when data and analytics orgs start to become successful and start to become a really key business partner. The challenge for my team is to be one of the most important departments in the company. And we're not building product, we're not selling, we're not marketing, but we are able to influence business decisions. And if you could even do that at 1%, that's a great return on investment on a small and mighty group. And so by having that challenge, we are kind of developing to be, the right-hand group for sales and marketing and the executive team, and being able to get data and drive it in a strategical and influencing way.
I love that, by the way. That's a great explanation. I think that absolutely fits the industry, and I think the reason why we do still talk about being data driven. You said something in there that's really interesting. I want to come back to. You mentioned you want to ensure your stakeholders are actioning, and we hear. I mean, you've probably seen it at different places, different times, where you do provide a data solution, and then you find out, some time later that team's actually taking that data and still doing something with it, which is what you were alluding to. How do you ensure to avoid that? And I guess the real question in there is when you're looking at your stakeholders, wanting them to be in a position to action the data, how are you measuring the fact that they're not doing other things to the data, that they're not, giving you an incomplete, requirement because they in the back of their mind knows, well, we're going to bust out Excel or Google Sheets and go do what we want with it anyways?
Yeah. I think for me, it's a big picture. I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories about someone like Steve Jobs and how he was super focused on the important signals and cancelled the noise. I think from my perspective and what we're trying to drive as a group, it's big picture revenue. And so if we're not moving the needle, then we're not doing our job. If we are moving the needle, we should be able to measure it to understand if we're effective enough or not, and if there is still room to enhance it from a business perspective. Um, from a technical perspective, I look at metrics and usage as almost as a health of the data culture. If people are continuing to use data, always coming back, it's part of their day to day. They're kind of living and breathing, getting data to be able to do what they do. I think for me, that's a good way to understand the general health of the culture. But for us, for me as an analytics org, I want to make sure I'm looking at the high level business metrics as well as specific areas that we look to influence, whether it's a marketing investment or my sales strategy or a website enhancement, and looking at the influence we have on that and if that is working. But I'm not looking at individuals and making sure everybody is doing things in the right way. I'm really looking at those high performance output metrics to make sure the strategies we have in place with data, with creating the information that's actionable, is being effective and driving those outcomes. I think if we don't see those business results, then that's a kind of a loop into understand what's going on. Is it the strategies is not working? Is it's not executed correctly, or we need to make some improvements into execution? And so the focus for me is really, really on the business. And a lot of the technical metrics or the platform metrics on usage and the amount of queries that are being run and who's using what, it is more of a health score for me, that the culture is really being data driven. And I look to make sure that we're building that culture in the right way as much as possible.
I think that's a great explanation. I think it kind of expands on the notion of being data driven. And I guess to kind of move the conversation slightly to the delivery, right? So, and I ask this of leaders now because I feel like before there was never a reason to ask it. Well, maybe there was, but there's a bigger reason of FOMO. Obviously, since GenAI, LLMs have come onto the market, people want to work on it. They want to build muscle memory. They want to build centers of excellence. There's a lot of activity that's happening there. Being data driven, I guess, do you need to divorce being data driven from the underlying tool set? Do they work hand in hand? What are your thoughts? Because obviously my follow-up to that will be more about the tools themselves. But I'm just curious how you view the technologies fit within the concept of being data driven.
Yeah, you may get super sick of me saying the focus on the business, but how many times on LinkedIn I'll get a salesperson to say, hey, you got to use this tool. It's the best in the market. And then they leave that company and go to a competitor and say, hey, I'm over here now. You got to use this tool. It's the best in the market. And so for me, again, it's about the business and how is that going to help me drive a positive return on investment. And then it obviously, when you're looking at technology and you're looking at these tools, you are considering costs. You are looking at how it comes and fits into your tool stack. You are considering the partnerships you have in the wider organization and what that looks like. But, a lot of these tools are all competing and things are moving, especially in that AI space every week, right? Every week there's a new leader in the most advanced, LLM. And so I think the focus for me when we're talking AI, it's more about the use cases than it is about, necessarily which LLM you're going to use, because that landscape is forever changing. And it's the use cases and the ability to use this technology to be able to get the best results. And for me, I think that the biggest challenge that organizations are facing with this, AI race is the use cases. How are you going to use it? And what are you going to do to be able to drive improvements on either the top or bottom of the P&L. And the whole environment now kind of reminds me of the early days of cloud and the drive for data science and data scientists, where everybody wanted data scientists. Teams would be scaled into many people, and then you would develop all these models that are just sitting on the shelf collecting dust. And similarly, that there is a push to use AI, use it everywhere. And I think if there isn't the clarity of use cases, you would probably end up having so many different pieces of technology, all a little bit similar, but maybe focused in a certain area. But your costs will rise, and if you don't have the right use cases, you might not get the return that we're hearing so much about when you're talking about AI.
Absolutely. Interesting. That's great commentary. And I guess when you mention data science, we did see that. It's an interesting, if we wind the clock 10, 15 years, the notion was apply data science to everything, then apply ML to everything, and slowly people realized they didn't need to. There were other tools. Is there a chance that we are doing similar with what's happening in AI? Is there a chance? And because whenever I ask this, the common answer is, if I don't, and my competitors are, am I just not learning about what not to do, or am I not building that muscle memory? And I get that perspective too. So I can't say that's wrong, but I am curious because we have seen these rush to certain technologies specific to data, and we've seen that they might not have been the best use. I mean, I don't know if, we needed as many data scientists to solve some of the problems that analytics could, but obviously we saw that happen.
Yeah, I think we're going to be on a journey. I think it's going to be a roller coaster, but I think what puts us in a better spot today than we were 15 years ago is that we should be learning from the past experiences. I think when you remember those days with data scientists, number one biggest hurdle and roadblock for a data scientist is the data. Either the poor quality or it doesn't exist. And that's, as well, another stumbling block when you're talking about AI today. The data is not of high quality or not good enough to be used in L&M, which then gives you poor results, and then you don't have the trust, or you don't have enough of the data that you need to really drive the outcome you want. I think the other thing that for me is really standing out is you have to be all in. The company has to be all in adopting these sorts of technologies and what you're able to drive with them. As an example of prior experiences, we would want to drive a lot with data scientists. We'll build a model to predict the next best product, but the business would not want to implement it. No good reasons. It needed a lot of change, needed a lot of effort. Things will fall lower in the priority list. And we wouldn't implement the use case of being able to drive product recommendations using a data-driven model. And so we've made all of this investment, but then we're not using it. And then it's kind of, we're not getting the most out of the data group and the data analytics group. And so I think similarly, companies got to be all in when they're trying to look at using AI. There is a use case. There is a benefit that you would want to focus on achieving up front, and you almost need to follow through. And we are going to be on a journey, and we will iterate and things will get better. But if you're not all in, I think we'll just get stuck in this similar phase where we're not seeing the outcomes, and we're driving up costs, whether it's through people or technology, and we're just not getting what we thought we would get out of it. So I think we should learn from the past. I think we've had those experiences, and I feel this is very similar. So I'm personally looking to make sure I could take some of those experiences into what we're trying to do with AI to be able to make sure we kind of, get a lot more benefits and really are able to demonstrate the positives of this new technology.
I guess a question, when we're talking about improving the business, we're talking about, even, being all in on advanced technologies. In this case, we're talking about AI. Data is the underpinning. When you're talking to stakeholders and they are hearing about AI, they're seeing the solutions being rolled out to other companies, peers. Obviously, they have different expectations. They don't really know or care about the data, the quality of the data, the underlying issues with the data. You still have to deliver. Is there a stakeholder expectation component to this that you have to get right so that they obviously are bought in along the journey, knowing that there might be different steps to getting there?
Do they care? I'm not sure. In our world, I don't know, as I speak to my sales counterparts, if they care about my data problems. That they just want us to help them execute. And so similar, I think that it is going to be an interesting negotiation around the use of AI, and if we are in this development phase, what are the expectations of the business, and how ready are we for AI, and what is the expectation? Because I haven't worked with too many people that care about my data problems. I don't speak to them about my data problems. That's my problem. What they're interested in and what I speak to them about is how I'm going to help them. And so I think that will be an interesting challenge for me and others as we start picking the use cases to be able to help other areas of the organization. I think some of the things that I'm realizing is, and when you think of the possibility where you could use natural language to analyze a data set, and you will use AI to be able to provide a interface for a salesperson, and there's tools already out there to allow business people to have a discussion in natural language in analyzing data. In that world, currently I am the AI. The business is asking me the questions. And if you think about the type of questions I'm being asked or what that looks like, the first question is never the real question that the person is asking. It does take that continual discussion, and it does take me to have that business understanding to make sure I can develop that discussion to really understand what we're trying to achieve. So I think AI will get there, but it's not there yet. And so if there is an expectation that we're going to create, use a BI tool where you could ask it questions and get your answers and you don't need analysts, I don't believe we're there yet. I think a real use case, and I've been playing with some AI tools a lot. For me, in someone who has a good understanding of the business and good understanding of the data, I'm almost able to use AI now as a junior analyst on the team. The questions that I've never really had time to go and develop something, my team are working on a lot more higher priority items. I'm able now to go and use AI to quickly get the answers so I have data going into my discussions. And I think that for me is a game changer. Because, being a data person, I like to have data in the meetings I go to. And so that gives me some really advanced capabilities that I didn't have before. And to be able to do it so quickly, it is a game changer, I think. And so the use cases, what the business expects, what we're able to develop. I think that's going to be an interesting one. Um, how the business understands where we're at. I'm sure everybody's going to be just give it to me and they're going to get it, and it's not going to be quite what they want. And we'll kind of have to step in and help that evolve and develop a little bit. So I think it will be an interesting one, but one that will really lead, I think, to a lot of positive use cases and the whole development of this whole AI craze that we're seeing at the moment.
I love that. And maybe I know you got to get back to the actual day job, but maybe a final question, because I am kind of curious about this. I asked this more of engineering leaders, but I am curious now more of data leaders, that you said you're seeing the AI tools for your process do some of the work at the junior level. Obviously, I agree with you. Your stakeholders don't care about your data problems 100%. They never have. The tool immaterial. They don't care. They want the solution. And obviously, self-service BI, self-service analytics, it's not there yet. It's a journey, I'd like to think. As you are now going to see some of these tools benefiting your efficiency, and we start seeing tools go into the hands of the end user, is there a scenario, is there a world where if a stakeholder can get to 70, 80% solution, and then it gets turned over to the data team, and we continue it, obviously we increase efficiency, we're not still that self-service, you'll have a lot more time. Where do you think you'll spend that time? I'm actually really curious about time when it comes to AI, because I think we're all going to get time back, and I'm very curious of where would we spend that time? We have to do something valuable with it, but where do you think you'd apply your time?
Yeah, I think the use of the time, if we're able to drive a lot more efficiency through those mundane ETL data management tasks, I think we will have more, people focused on business problems, more looking for other data sources to be able to solve the problem, more analytical minds. I think when you look at the weighting of teams in the past, I would say I would be heavier in the engineering and dashboard and reporting, ETL development, that world, than I am in the analytics and data science space. I think that will change. I think we will get more analytical minded people in a data and analytics team, where they're focused on being able to really, really get the data, manage the data in a better way to find the right use cases that we can use to drive the business solutions that we're trying. I think it's going to be interesting whether what actually happens is maybe there is less people needed on the team, so we don't actually get more time. I just need less people in there working on managing the world. So it's going to be an interesting space. I do very much believe that the value is on the business and the analytics side. And so if I had more time of anybody, that's where I would want them to be focusing. And so I think naturally, if that's what we're able to do from an efficiency perspective, this is where I would want to invest more time. And that could look like having people in the different departments across the organization. There's the data mesh concept, and that's kind of from an infrastructure perspective. I would think that may change to be also an analytical structure where, with the free time, I'm able to have more individuals spend more time in a business unit and to be able to really drive a ton of efficiency. I think in a lot of organizations still there's a lot of mundane work that with AI, it's not only my team that will find more time, but it should allow us to go out into the business and help these other business areas really find more time on their side. and that should drive more results, whether that's more sales or more product enhancements or whatever it is. I think that the free time we have is really going to allow us to go out into the business units to be able to really enhance the efficiency of their working load, and to be able to really give them the time to make the sale, make the enhancement, drive better results.
I love it.
Mark, but we will see. It's an interesting one.
Yes, I think, as you mentioned, it's a journey. I think people are still in the in that discovery phase for each org. As with being data driven, it means different things because people are at different maturity levels. So I think we will see. It'll be interesting to talk about. If somebody does have a question, they want to ask you follow up. Is there a good way of connecting with you?
Yeah, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Mark Gergess. You'll find me there. Happy to talk about anything. I love the space and happy to help and chat with anybody who's interested.
Absolutely. I definitely appreciate time. Thanks for being on the show.
Awesome. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Amir.
Absolutely. All right, that's it for the episode. Be back again, different guest, different topic. Until then, two things. One, I'd love for you to share this episode with other people in the space. Mark has a fantastic background talking about business improvement, really diving into what it means to be data-driven. I honestly think it's one of the better episodes we've done. I think it might be the best, honestly, talking about what it means to be data-driven and how to really hone in on the component that helps your stakeholder. And Mark did a great job with examples and walking us through his thoughts. And we touched on a little bit of, what to do with advanced technologies, like GenAI, and draw some comparisons to data science and why AI might be a little bit different. So I thought it was fantastic. If you could share the episode, that'd be wonderful. Also, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know how the show's going for you. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.